Hi, and welcome back to He Knows. My name's Chris, and I'm your host for again tonight. And tonight we've got some new updates about what's going on here in America with the cabinet that President elect Donald Trump is putting together. First of all, we're hearing that Matt Gaetz has withdrawn his name as the AG nominee, but he has replaced Matt with somebody who I think is equally capable and going to be able to do a fantastic job, and that is Pam Bondi. Pam Bondi is a former Attorney General of Florida, and she has done a very fine job in that role, and I think she will be an excellent choice and be able to do the job with the same amount of zeal and gusto that Matt Gaetz would have been able to do the job. And plus, we still have the possibility of Matt Gaetz serving some role, and that probably also scares those that have a lot to be scared about on a constant basis. How do we know it's a good pick? Well, as I told you last time, we always know it's a good pick by how loudly the other side is screaming. And we've seen on newscasts, or at least opinion casts, that the people should be very, very scared of Pam Bondi because she's very capable and very competent, which that makes me smile quite a lot. Also hearing rumors that Kash Patel might be the choice for the head of the FBI. Christopher Wray, the corrupt Christopher Wray, we know is supposed to be leaving ahead of the inauguration, January 20th. With this case going on, if Kash Patel were to be the pick, we've already got the left crying that he would be very dangerous. Frankly, I think that's good. The swamp rats need to be worried. Rumor has it that Kash Patel has the votes to be confirmed. And it makes me wonder, was there a deal worked out in the back rooms where if Matt Gaetz were to drop out, then the rest of President-elect Trump's nominees would be able to sail right through? I'm wondering, does Lisa Murkowski of Alaska and Susan Collins of Maine know this? Because they're already squawking that they want full background checks on everybody. And it sounds to me like they have something that they probably should be fearing. In other interesting news, it looks like MSNBC is up for sale. Now, there was a good meme or conversation, I guess, on X to where I think it was Donald Trump Jr. said, "Hey, Elon, I have the funniest idea." And it was all around a posting that said MSNBC was for sale. Elon's response was, "How much does it cost?" Which is pretty telling because of a similar situation that happened when Twitter was up for sale. Somebody mentioned to Elon, and Elon's response was, "How much does it cost?" Interesting to see how that might come to pass. I think it would be fantastic. I think it would be also interesting if there was a conjunction with the sale of InfoWars. InfoWars recently went up for auction, where, in an auction, supposedly the highest bidder is the winner of the auction. Well, that wasn't the case. And the judge decided that he was going to award the win to The Onion. Now, The Onion is a publication and it's a company that has gone bankrupt numerous times, more times than you can count on one hand. I can't remember if it's 7 or 8, but it's plenty of times. And they've been bailed out each time. And The Onion said that they would pay some short number, somewhere around $200,000 to $300,000, but they were going to use future profits in order to pay for the sale. That was very underhanded by the judge that was in charge of this sale. It wasn't the highest bid. We're very well aware of that. And when a complaint was made and they started investigating, the judge finally put the brakes on and said, "Okay, whoa, 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 let's figure out what happened," which it's all pretty clear what happened. It was fraud. and they decided to stop the sale. So InfoWars hasn't changed hands yet. But wouldn't it be interesting if Elon Musk were to buy MSNBC and InfoWars and combine them, and then laid down the law at the company that what they were to report was the information that citizen journalists, real journalists, not the stuff that you see of talking heads on TV, but actual citizen journalists like Laura Loomer, people like that, get out there and actually investigate stuff. If they started publicly putting that out on the airwaves, I think that would be phenomenal. Oh, and while you're at it, see if you can get Alex Jones to take one of the spots. I think it'd be pretty cool if he replaced, what's his name? Well, it's escaping me at the moment. So it would be interesting, though, if they decided to. Oh, Rachel Maddow finally remembered. Yeah. It would be interesting if they decided to start actually reporting real news rather than the blah, blah, blah that they always do. But, when viewership is sinking down to very, very small numbers, what can you do? So the network's up for sale. InfoWars apparently is back up for sale. Let's see if history kind of repeats itself a little bit. That would be fun to watch, I think. So Tulsi Gabbard is also in the news. They're still spouting off that Tulsi, who is prepared to join Trump's team as DNI, Director of National Intelligence, they're still trying to spread the nonsensical rumor that Tulsi is a Russian asset. Now, this whole Tulsi is a Russian asset kind of came along at about the same time that the whole Russia collusion hoax came about. And they both have the exact same person at the center of the creation of these two long tails. And that would be Hillary Clinton. Hillary created these smears, and they're called a wrap-up smear. But she created these smears in order to try to damage Tulsi Gabbard because at the time she was endorsing Bernie Sanders for president. This was way back before, coming up to the 2016 election. Now, Bernie was doing quite well, and Hillary couldn't have that. And with Tulsi's endorsement of Bernie after she had dropped out of the race, Hillary got upset. So she created this Tulsi is a Russian asset lie. Now, what is a wrap-up smear? A wrap-up smear is when you peddle a story and you get somebody to print it for you. And then you take that story and you take it to the press and see, they printed about it, it must be true. We understand that it's a wrap-up smear because Nancy Pelosi laid out exactly how they do it. And it's clearly on video, her going from A to B, exactly how a wrap-up smear works. And this wrap-up smear was working for a little while until Bernie somehow managed to be gifted another house and decided to drop out of the race, even though it was a pretty tight race between him and Hillary. I wonder where that house came from. Anyway, on to the interesting pieces. This wrap-up smear is quite interesting, and we're going to see a wrap-up smear in our first video tonight. The wrap-up smear is important because it seems like government officials use this every time they want to come up with a little dirt that doesn't exist on somebody. Our first video tonight details the corruption of the CCP and their first push towards somebody in power of Interpol. Now, Interpol is an organization that is kind of unifies policing across the world. 198 countries are connected with Interpol, and China in 2016 was able to push forth their first leader who was supposed to be the president of Interpol. And Miles, in his own words, is going to tell the events and conversations that took place regarding the red notice that was placed on him. So let's go ahead and watch that video, and we'll see exactly what he's talking about.
木兰它是个很有代表作用的，就是我当时报王岐山和刘成杰这个冠军，还有特别是就是陈峰和王健海航。木兰是知道的，因为他家人跟他们是有关系，而且他家中其中一个咱最重要的爆料的一个东西跟他家有关系，他本身就知道你是真是假。特别是419又给我发红通啊，又是太平联盟告我呀，9个建筑官司啊，楼下抗议呀，就这些事情，实际上他是共产党这锅菜，你发现了没有？就是一会儿东帝你可以聊一聊，就共产党就玩这一套活，他对谁都这样，你是强奸犯，你是骗子，你没钱，你阳痿是吧？然后你这人不可信啊，你有犯罪，然后红通，然后你再想想孟宏伟，就是在我报这个海航的时候，是孟宏伟作为联合国的这派到国际上 NGO 的国际刑警组织的主席，是中国共产党中国人第一次干这个职务。最重要的事情，给我发蓝通也好，红通也好，孟宏伟是非常不情愿的。这是今天我告诉你，非常不情愿的。最早就是孟宏伟给我告诉我的，老郭他要跟你发红通，所以这跟419很有关系，你知道吗？他说你就别报了吧，他说这发这红通很危险的。他们要在英国和在意大利把你摁住啊！他说：“老郭，你疯了！你跟这个流氓组织斗得起吗？我都往外跑了，我不知道哪一天我就跑非洲找不着了。”这是原话。他现在已经判完刑了，我都不知道在那非洲找不着了，我都想去整容去了。求求你了，爷呀，别那么傻了啊！你为谁呀？孟宏伟他太不了解咱了，但是绝对够哥们儿。但是你知道他讲了一个非常重要的一句话，他说：“海航。”那是王岐山的钱袋子，你敢报海航，老郭你报他把王岐山叫鬼子啊，你报鬼子，你绝对是万劫不复。他说你家里边连坟都得给你刨了。那么当时这个孟宏伟有一句精彩的话，老郭你只要是419，你张开嘴就是你全家灭亡之时。你别怪我，你也别说我，所以我们俩有默契。后来我很少提孟宏伟的事儿。所以刚才木兰说的时候，你知道他讲到这个海航这事情的时候，海航给孟宏伟弄了一大房子在法国，知道吗？他说跟你说实在话，老郭，我这房子，我这私下住房就人家陈峰给安排的，人家王健亲自跑来给我弄的，这原话。现在是人呢，你想想，这事实，你谁也盖不住。
So Meng Hongwei, who was supposed to be the president of Interpol from 2016 through 2020, suddenly disappeared in September of 2018, and in January of 2020 was sentenced to 13 years in jail. What it seems like to me, and based on the timeline, I think it's hard to dispute, is that the conversations that Miles was talking about took place before the April 19th video discussion for the VOA, Voice of America. Sorry, I had to remember the name of it. But for the Voice of America. So this was a very, very well publicized conversation that was going to take place. And if you remember correctly, they got a little over an hour into the broadcast, and then they suddenly got the kill it motion from the CCP connected producer. So this well advertised program that was supposed to go on for roughly 3 hours was suddenly killed before it even hit the hour and a half mark. At that point, and remember, that was April 19th that broadcast took place. So these conversations between Meng Hongwei and Miles took place before April 19th. Now, if you were able to notice at the end of that video, they talked about the Mulan, who's a member of the whistleblower community, was able to convey to Miles that it was HNA, the company that is at the root of a lot of this corruption that is completely and totally led by Wang Qishang and little Wang and in his cohorts was at the root of all of this. It seems to me that H&A, when they purchased the mansion in France, which couldn't have been inexpensive, my guess is that they placed a lot of listening devices because, espionage, they need to know what's going on because they've got one of their people leading and they want to know exactly what's going on. And the opportunity to really affect an individual, a citizen of the world, his life, came up. And so April 19th, they forced Meng Hongwei to issue a red notice. Now, in the video, there was a little bit of a talk about red notice and blue notice, and I just want to make sure that everyone understands the difference. A blue notice is a request for information about a person's identity or activities. A red notice is much more severe. It seeks the location and provisional arrest of fugitives. Now, Miles, under no definition, was a fugitive at this point. He wasn't. How in the world were they able to convince the head of the Interpol, and I almost said the head of the CCP because there's a lot of connection there, but how were they able to convince the head of Interpol, who was a member of the CCP, who was connected by H&A because they bought him a house? They literally forced him to put forth the red notice. Now, Miles' broadcast was on April 19th. That red notice was submitted on April and issued on April 19th. Doesn't sound like a coincidence to me. Supposedly, when Meng disappeared in September of 2018, he was caught up in President Xi Jinping's anti-corruption campaign. It seems to me that that's not the case. It sounds to me more like from April 19th of 2017, the day of the broadcast on VOA, Voice of America, till September of 2018, when on a trip home from France back to China, he suddenly disappeared, that people involved with H&A, people involved with Wang Qishan, little Wang, intercepted him and made him disappear. Now, of course, they brought him up on charges. They said that he took $2 million in bribes, but then again, it's all part of the wrap-up smear. But they were able to convince imagine that, a CCP court that was led by CCP people that was all connected to Wang Qishan. It was pretty much an easy guilty verdict, and unfortunately, Meng Hongwei received a prison sentence of 13 and a half years. But the fact that they claimed that it was part of Xi Jinping's anti-government campaign kind of reminds me of a scene in the movie, the Tom Clancy movie, The Sum of All Fears. In that movie, there was an instance where the Russian president had just died of a heart attack and a new Russian president took power. A lot of people didn't know who this Russian president was, and all of a sudden, rogue elements in the government, led by somebody else outside of Russia, started implementing acts of terrorism. And in one case, the new Russian president is forced to take credit for this first act. These rogue elements are the ones that did it, but the logic behind the thing is that the Russian president could not appear to be weak, could not appear to have control of his own army. I'm wondering if there may be some similarities with Xi Jinping here, and if there was some forecasting going on, and how often does this actually happen in the world, where rogue elements, and a rogue element would certainly be H&A and little Wang. This could absolutely be a situation just like we see in the movie. Now, fortunately, in the movie, all things, they go bad and then they go good. Well, hopefully, that's what we'll have in this real life instance where we're talking about the freedom of Meng Hongwei. Our second video tonight, in Miles' own words, goes into the creep of the CCP tentacles into Europe and throughout the rest of the world. In this case, we're talking about H&A taking control over Deutsche Bank. They took a 10%, nearly a 10% stake, which gave them controlling interest. And we all know that once somebody has controlling interest, they can start loading the board up with their own people and start making decisions that a well-led company may not make. We've seen this happen all the time. So let's go ahead and take a look at how Wang's PAG and H&A controls Europe.
能看到什么叫生死级治国。8960的最怀护手之一，其中就是姚依林。大家知道喜马拉雅大使馆在哪个路吗？很多人没有注意，很多战友并不敏感。我们是在64节，我当时有个选择，一个是63节，一个是64节。63节随时都搬进去了。我当时我决定我要64节这个，我等我要64节，因为64节让我终生不会忘记6月4号。64节，我在纽约的64节，8964，可以说是让我的一生彻底的转变。这个64的凶手之一就是姚依林，姚依林的女婿叫王岐山，他的唯一儿子姚明伟，姚明伟的唯一儿子叫姚庆，姚明伟的私生子公开的之一啊，我告诉你，他还有5个以上。我现在先报这一个。传说中的菲利普，德国副总理，是谁能那么在89年这个64之后，能在外面布下天罗地网？天罗是海外的钱，地网是他的私生子孙，而且能把一个越南的孤儿弄到德国去，成为德国副总理，差点控制德国，控制德国就控制了半个欧洲啊！就控制了1/4个世界呀，欧洲3驾马车嘛，德法英嘛，但是那3驾马车里一半是德国呀，这是谦虚的说法，甚至更多。啊，英国要脱了欧以后，那就是一大半就是德国了。欧洲是德国的欧洲还是法国的欧洲，一直斗来斗去，结果英国人老往上凑合，凑来凑去就给踢出去了。哎，那我不玩了，我不跟你玩了，那叫脱欧。啊，一直就是德国的欧洲、法国的欧洲斗来斗去，德国的欧洲，控制了德国就控制了欧洲，啊，控制了德国还控制德意志银行啊，所以说海航就控制德意志银行，控制德意志银行谁在后面当托啊？啊 ，PAG 在英国怎么个关系啊？在英国上市公司上千亿美元，欧洲是谁的欧洲？王岐山的欧洲。跟你习近平跟你共产党个蛋的关系啊？这叫爱国吗？国内的那些5毛7毛不要脸的东西，你去爱王岐山，看他让不让你爱？你爱人家王岐山的 PAG， 让不让你爱？你爱的是谁的毛国呀？人家那在越南睡的女人生的私生子孩子都到德国当副总理去了。人家是德意志银行，人家控制了；纽约慈航，人家控制了。PAG 随便一个公司上市上1000亿美元。
So as you can tell by Miles' own words, just exactly how deeply the June 4th events in 1989 that happened at Tiananmen Square affected his life by saying that he was offered, office space for the Himalaya Embassy on both 63rd and 64th Street, but there was no question for him. He wanted the office space on 64th Street because of the power of numbers. 6-4, June 4th, 1989. It was embedded in his consciousness that he wanted to remember this date and use this date as his his power in order to keep his fight going, in order to bring down the evils of the CCP, the evils of Wang Qishan, and the corruption that infiltrated everything that little Wang touched, PAG, HNA, everything. It starts talking about the incestuous relationship. We learn that Yao Yilin, who was one of the perpetrators of the June 4th, 1989 incident, is still deeply connected by family. We know that Yao Yinlin's son-in-law is Wang Qishan. We also know that his only son, Yao Mingwei, only had one son, and that son is Yao Qing. However, Yao Mingwei very publicly acknowledges an illegitimate child. This illegitimate child was born in Vietnam to a woman there, and then he abandoned the child. And it seems to me this happens a lot with these very, very powerful kleptocrats in China, particularly Wang Qishan, and we'll talk a moment about Zhou Lo, also an illegitimate child of a very, very powerful CCP affiliate. But Philip Rossler grew up, or was adopted by a German family out of Vietnam and taken to Germany, where he grew up to become the German vice chancellor. This is absolutely crazy, and we know that this Philip Rossler worked very, very closely with the German premier at the time, unfortunately drawing a blank. It'll probably come to me in a minute. But we can see the global web of control that China and the CCP was attempting to take over all the land. We also know that Philip Rossler, which Miles didn't talk about in this particular video, but Philip Rossler is also very deeply involved with the World Economic Foundation. You know, that same World Economic Foundation created by Klaus Schwab, who is very famous for saying, "You will own nothing and like it." This is the attitude of all these people. They want the plebes of the world to own nothing and the few rich of the world to own everything. This is an absolute catastrophe if this winds up coming to pass. We see with the PAG control of Deutsche Bank that they're trying to infiltrate the money of the world. By controlling Deutsche Bank and controlling interest in the German government, they literally control most of Europe. There are two countries that generally vie for power in the European Union, as Miles pointed out, and that is France and Germany. And we know through history the absolute bloodshed that has been spread by the Germans trying to take power throughout history. Fortunately, they don't do it that way anymore, and they do it monetarily, but it's still just as wrong. So, in the end, we can see that Wang Qishan has reached all throughout the world in order to control everything. And this is the guy that's got to be stopped. Miles talks about it's not patriotism to be supporting somebody like Wang Qishan, little Wang. It is not patriotism. It is not being in favor of your country. It is absolutely horrifying that they might be able to take control, push everybody down, completely destroy the middle class in America, and then where is the world? They own everything, and the rest of the world owns nothing. In closing tonight, I'd like to bring up one verse of singer Johnny Cash from a song called God's Gonna Cut You Down. Well, you can throw your rock and hide your hand, working in the dark against your fellow man. But sure as God made black and white, what's done in the dark will be brought to the light. Sooner or later, God's gonna cut you down. We pray that God shows these people the light and saves them from harming the rest of the world. I want to thank you for joining me tonight, and I look forward to talking to you again next week.